Welcome to MrClef.com's review of the presidents. Who do I need to know? What did they do? Well, let's try to make sense of it, starting with George Washington. He set a bunch of precedents, including neutrality. He also had the Whiskey Rebellion, which enforced law, and when he left office, he remained neutral with a farewell address. Here's a look at what the difference between Hamilton and Jefferson are. You're welcome. Next came John Adams. Adams had this interesting flow chart where after the Jay Treaty, the French were upset, so the XYZ affair occurred. And then you had the Alien and Sedition Acts followed by the Kentucky and Virginia Resolution, one of which was written by this man, Thomas Jefferson. He used loose interpretation of the Constitution to get the Louisiana Purchase, had the Tripoli War, and oh, grab me. Yes, that's the Embargo Act, pretty unpopular. Afterwards came James Madison, he of the War of 1812. The Monroe Doctrine, yeah, you got to know that. Keep those countries from Europe out of the Western Hemisphere. John Quincy Adams made a corrupt bargain to gain office. That's how he defeated this man, Andrew Jackson, no bits. The bank veto, Indian removal, enforcing the tariff and the spoil system. Jackson's the common man who brought democracy to more people. Also during his time, you had the Second Great Awakening as well as the Market Revolution. Skipping a few do-nothing presidents, here's James Knox Polk. He of the Mexican-American War, where we got a lot of territory during Manifest Destiny. Let's bring it up to Abraham Lincoln, your Civil War president. He changed his stance on slavery. At first, he just didn't want it to spread. Then, with the Emancipation Proclamation, he became more of an abolitionist. He also got assassinated, which is why Andrew Johnson became president. He was unpopular and got impeached for his Reconstruction methods. Ulysses S. Grant had a little bit more success in forcing Reconstruction, but he also was plagued by some scandals. How about Rutherford B. Hayes? We see the end of Reconstruction with the Compromise of 1877. He also broke up a railroad strike and favored big business. Skipping ahead. Grover Cleveland also broke up a strike, the Pullman strike. He said it was violating interstate commerce. William McKinley defeated William Jennings Bryan and the Populists in 1896. He also ushered in a time of imperialism with the Spanish-American War. He was assassinated and Vice President Teddy Roosevelt took over. The trust-busting progressive also supported conservation, was a friend to labor, and used his big stick in Panama. He supported the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine that said the U.S. were the cops of the Western Hemisphere. William Howard Taft said that dollar diplomacy was the way to go by investing in Latin America and China, and yeah, he got stuck in a tub. Woodrow Wilson was a progressive president. He supported the FTC, the Federal Reserve, and the Clayton Antitrust Act. During World War I, he had the 14 points, as well as negotiated the Treaty of Versailles. It never got ratified. In places such as Mexico, he supported missionary diplomacy where the U.S. would support democracies. Let's skip to Herbert Hoover. Yikes, the Great Depression. Although he did a few things to help out, he didn't do as much as FDR. FDR's New Deal had many different programs, some of which are still around to this day. He used a lot of deficit spending. He also tried to pack the court, which wasn't very popular. During World War II, although we remained neutral for a while after Pearl Harbor, the United States got involved. FDR signed Executive Order 9066, which sent Japanese Americans into internment camps. FDR died during World War II, and Harry Truman took over. He dropped the atomic bomb. After the war, he supported containment in policies such as the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. He also integrated the United States Army during the Korean War. The Korean War would end during Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower supported containment during a rather conservative time during the 1950s. He enforced the decision of Brown versus the Board of Education when he sent the military into Arkansas. JFK also supported civil rights, but he was more known for things that happened in Cuba. He had both the Bay of Pigs invasion as well as negotiated the end to the Cuban Missile Crisis. The United States went to the moon in 1969, and JFK helped get that ball rolling. Of course, we know he was assassinated and Lyndon Johnson took over. He had a great society and civil rights, helped out the poor. However, he was known more so during the time for escalating the Vietnam War. Richard Nixon ended the Vietnam War, went to China for what's called ping-pong diplomacy. He also was embroiled in an oil crisis and, oh yeah, the Watergate scandal.
I'm not a crook.
The next president was Gerald Ford. Ford pardoned Nixon, which was unpopular at the time. A Washington outsider, Jimmy Carter was a one-term president who suffered through an energy crisis, a bad economy, and most of all, the Iran hostage crisis. Ronald Reagan spent a lot during the Cold War on programs such as Star Wars. He went to Berlin and said, "Tear down this wall." Regarding the economy, he supported Reaganomics, or supply-side economics. George H.W. Bush had the Persian Gulf War that looked to protect American oil interests abroad, but left office after one term because of a deep recession. The economy rebounded under Clinton, who also had NAFTA for trade between Mexico, Canada, and the United States. He sent NATO troops into Bosnia, and he got impeached for
have sexual
ask your parents about that.
Woman.
George W. Bush had the war on terror after 9/11, including wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, but he left office during the financial crisis. The government gave stimulus during this time period, and that would continue under President Obama. The first African-American president, Barack Obama, supported universal health care with Obamacare, an end to don't ask, don't tell in the military, as well as increased the amount of stimulus for the economy. Donald Trump wanted to make America great again. That meant less globalization and keeping jobs at home. The economy strengthened under Trump, but COVID-19 changed everything. Trump was impeached twice during his presidency. Trump's second impeachment centered around a January 6, 2020 insurrection where his supporters challenged the results and a loss to Joe Biden. There you have it, the most likely presidents to wind up on your test. Use MrClaff.com's review sheets and videos. There's much more detail than what I just gave you here.